Hello, my name is Andy and I am the Village Idiot. I'm armed with a car and a GoPro and an unhealthy amount of time on my hands. I'm using that time to attempt to visit every civil parish in England. You're watching the West Lindsey series. This is one of the 9 districts of Lincolnshire and one of the county's most rural. It has 128 civil parishes. Let's see which one this episode's all about. Hello folks, welcome back to West Lindsey and welcome to a day that's going to be full of minging, horrible, wet weather. Just have a look at this. I can barely see over in the distance because it is so wet at the moment. I'm not going to enjoy this one. Anyway, we are starting this one outside a former RAF base. Now, I can't get onto this base in any way, shape or form because these days it is privately owned and there's a business on there called Skydock. So guess what? At the beginning of this one, you're going to get the special section. Welcome to Foldingworth. The West Lindsey series is sponsored by Gaines Recycles 01427 617 752. For all your cycling needs, this is your one-stop shop, located at 20 Ropery Road or online at gainesrecycles.com. There's a link in the description. Gaines Recycles, ask for Trevor Halstead. And this video is also sponsored by Jamie's Fitness Studio, based on Low Road, Grayingham, near Curtin in Lindsey. Jamie is one busy lady. Check her out by calling 07906 749 574 or emailing hello@jamies.co.uk. Online membership is available. There's a link to her Facebook page in the description. Jamie's Fitness Studio. Get fit, get happy, get healthy. Here's my disclaimer for people who may be watching me for the first time. I say things as I would in my native accent and dialect. As a result, I may not pronounce things in the same way as the locals do. Remember, I'm a visitor. It's impossible to know everything. Leave me a comment, spin me a like and bash that subscribe button. Let's get to today's parish video. Welcome to Foldingworth, a small village on the A46 between Lincoln and Market Rasen in West Lindsey. Foldingworth is a much larger village than the ones we've seen just recently in this area. Its name is Old English and it means to make sheepfolds. Once a substantial medieval village, Foldingworth's population declined in the 14th century before expanding again in the 19th. It was, during the war, the site of yet another RAF base in this part of Lincolnshire, RAF Faldingworth, which we'll discuss at length throughout this episode. Its history is marked with some nice memorials in the Church of All Saints, including the porch's entrance gates, which have a fascinating story all by themselves. Foldingworth is a village of 2 halves. The northern part of the settlement is the oldest, whilst the southern areas, mainly off the A46, are much newer. It's got a few notable landmarks, including a playing field, a small playground, a pub, a church, a school, and a village hall, which is linked to the Stamp family. Historical features of note include Stamp's Mill, a former tower windmill at the northern end of the High Street. The other name of note here would be Brownlow, a name which used to be sported by a pub. Named the Brownlow Arms, it referred to the Earl Brownlow, who left a charity for the parish's poor. Let's get walking and see all this and more on our way. RAF Faldingworth was used by Bomber Command during World War II, and although the station closed in 1972, parts of the airfield still exist. There's a memorial on the base to those who flew and failed to return. It's located at the end of the main runway, and it commemorates 300 Polish Squadron because this was a Polish base. RAF Faldingworth entered service as Toft Grange Decoy Airfield. It was later made a satellite airfield of RAF Lindome, and in late 1943 it became a satellite of RAF Ludford Magna. In 1957, the airfield resembled a high-security prison because it was used for storage of nuclear weapons, namely the H-bomb. With the transfer of the UK nuclear deterrent role to the Royal Navy's Resolution-class submarines in 1968, the site was run down and finally deactivated in 1972. The base had a cluster of 127 RAF-built houses, which are now known as the Virginia Estate. Keep them in mind, there's more on them coming next week. Well, here we are in Foldingworth village. I won't say the rain's completely stopped because it hasn't, but it's certainly, as you can see, got a bit brighter. The sun is out now, so hopefully this village will look absolutely fantastic. So we're on Spridlington Road and we're going to walk down into the main village centre. It's not a very big place, this, but you know, it's still the biggest one I'm doing today, believe it or not. So yeah, let's head down Spridlington Road and see what we can find. This is Spridlington Road, which runs from Foldingworth to Spridlington. The former RAF base is between the two and it straddles the boundary. Spridlington Road is generally a mix of housing styles. There's a lot of detached properties and most of them have names as opposed to numbers. Halfway down the road is Stocks Lane, which is where we come across the parish notice board. That's 91 down in West Lindsey now. We're doing well, aren't we? At the end of the road we come to a small green and overlooking it is a large house. That's a former pub, believe it or not, called the Brownlow Arms. Following its closure it became an antique centre, but now it's a private residence. Let's turn right here and head down the A46 or Lincoln Road next. If you need a bus, this is the place to catch it. Foldingworth is served by the number 53, which runs between Lincoln and Market Rasen. So it's fair to say that Foldingworth has a new bit and an old bit. The new part is to the south, the older part is more to the north. So we're going to walk through this new bit first. As you can see, it's generally new build properties. There are two play parks here in Foldingworth. There's one here on Foldingworth playing field on Jubilee Avenue. Here we go. I suppose this is where the local football team play. I can see some football goals over there. There's a few other bits and bobs of equipment. There's some slides, some swings, other bits and bobs. And the other one's got a bit more actually for the kids around here. We're going to work our way towards that, walk through that, and that'll take us to the older part where we'll find the church and the mill and a few other bits and bobs as well. So yeah, let's go. The south of Foldingworth is generally speaking its newest area. These houses have all been built within the past few decades. The fact that they're here means the village's population has increased quite substantially in that time. However, it appears that there are no more new housing estates planned for the future. If there are, Foldingworth has no problem when it comes to the provision of recreational facilities. This is the other small play area to go with the playing field that we've just seen. Back out onto Lincoln Road, I spotted these roadside stalls opposite the green. I wonder what these sell or perhaps once sold. Now we head back past the Brownlow Arms and there's a banner for Kissimall School here, which we learned about last week. It seems like they're recruiting. And once past the former pub, the road bends to the right and we're coming onto the High Street. Now this has quite a few of the village's main landmarks. Okay, so now we're on the High Street and this is the only linear part of this route, which means at the end of this I'll have to turn around and come back. But when I do, I'll be heading for the church, which you can see over there, past the school, and take a footpath back to the car. But there are a few things up here of note. First of all, we've got a village hall. Across the way there's an old school, and of course at the other end of this there's the windmill. So there's a bit to talk about here. First up on the High Street is an old free school. It was built in 1828 and later extended twice. We'll see the current school shortly. Next, it's Foldingworth Memorial Hall. This was built in memory of Herbert Percival Stamp, who died in World War II. The land it stands on was donated by the Stamp family. Next door is a former Wesleyan chapel, which was built in 1897 on the site of an earlier one. It was designed by Frederick Whitaker Dixon from Oldham. Despite its size, Foldingworth has no shop. This here is the former shop and post office, which is now closed. That's the George V postbox in the wall, by the way. Here's the Coach and Horses pub. In 1930, Kelly's Directory mentioned a beer retailer in Foldingworth called Croft Herbert. The two may have been one and the same. And at the end of the high street, the road bends to the north. I must apologise here, I can't remember for the life of me who this bench is dedicated to. Okay, so we've reached the end of the high street, and as you can see, the road now disappears off into the distance. So we're heading back the other way, and here you can see the old windmill, which is clearly not in use anymore. It doesn't have its cap or its sails anymore. The easiest place to stand to give you a good view of this is probably just here, because there's a gap in the hedge, as you can see. So let's talk a bit about the mill, and then we'll head back down the high street towards the church and the school. Located at the end of the high street, this is Stamps Mill. It was built in 1822 and was worked by wind until 1938, and then by engine for a number of years. It had 4 spring-shuttered sails which were mounted on half stocks. For quite some time it had no fantail. The cap and sails were removed in the 1950s. We've seen the old school, now here's the current school, which serves the parishes of Foldingworth, Bustlingthorpe, Toft Newton, Freesthorpe and Snarford. This is right next to the Church of All Saints. A Grade 2 listed building, this was renovated in 1814 and again in 1891. It can seat 150 people. The church has lots of memorabilia related to RAF Faldingworth. When we go inside in a few moments, we'll see some of the things I'm talking about. Although there is one memorial here which you wouldn't automatically know was one. The gates to the porch are RAF related, and they have their very own little tale to tell. Okay, the church is open, so we will be going in a moment, but first I just want to talk about these gates. These are the memorial porch outer gates. I'll just show you them properly. Here we go. It's these that we're talking about. Now these have got a little story, and in the porch here is said story. So these were made to commemorate the sacrifices made by the whole of the squadron from RAF Faldingworth. They were made in Hackthorne Forge by Nick Oakes to a layout by the church warden. The gates are constructed in hand-forged steel. The design shows the RAF and PAF markings with the letter BH. Above this, the impression of the runway. The arms sweep out from different parts of the world, Poland and Britain, to join in prayer as they pass through the door, depicted in the gate, into the next existence. Wings carry one skyward for those who returned, with half a wing either side of the door for those who did not. And these were dedicated, as you can see, in October 2005. So I'll just show you them again so you can see all that again. Aren't they fabulous? And you know what, it's great that we found something that links Foldingworth to another parish nearby, namely Hackthorne. Right, let's go in and see what we can find inside the church. First thing would be a light switch. There we go, found a light switch. So let's have a little look in here, shall we? So we've got an octagonal font at this end. It's quite nice. Little tower here. Now obviously this is not the church tower. It's not a depiction of the actual church tower because it hasn't got a spire on it. Wonder what that's all about. It's some kind of collection box actually, because I can see some coins at the bottom there. Okay. This tells us about the bells. So there's 4 by the looks of it. A half ton, a third of a ton, quarter ton, and a 1 counterweight bell, apparently. That's the tower there. Authorised persons only, so I can't go in there. There is a bit of stained glass in there though. Let's oh, look on this window ledge here. Look, here's a model of the church. That's nice. That's really good actually. I'm impressed by that. So let's head down towards the chancel through the rood screen. This is quite a cavernous chancel actually, it's fairly big. There's a nice bit of stained glass at the end there, look. That's pretty. Timber ceiling, nice organ as well. Let's have a look at the walls, see if there's any tablets on the walls. I always like finding those. Ooh. It's Mary and Jesus. Let's have a look over here. I'm expecting to find some war memorials in here because obviously with the RAF history. So they're the rectors. This is to do with Florence Henrietta Cust, who entered into rest June 19th, 1902. This brass was placed here by the rector and tenant of this parish as a token of esteem. Okay. Ah, here we go. Here's the war memorial stuff, look. That flag above the memorial, the brass plaque, is Polish. And there's even, next to it, as you can see, some stained glass that's got some Polish markings. Obviously you've got the Polish, part of the Polish flag there, and it's all Polish. This is all Polish on the left, on the right here I should say, and British on the left. That's good, that's really good. It's good that we remember the Poles and what they did in the war actually. So yeah, there we go. That is the Church of All Saints here in Foldingworth. So let's head back out of the door and go and find something else. The remainder of the walk takes us across some fields by way of a well-marked footpath. The sun was shining at this point and West Lindsey looked great. There isn't much to talk about in this section, so while you're enjoying these gorgeous views, I'm going to talk a bit more about the memorial on the old airfield. Buried within it are parts from 2 Halifax bombers and 11 Lancaster bombers that were used by the Polish 300 Squadron, all of which flew from Foldingworth. The Parish Council's website states that visitors are able to access the memorial normally, but its recommended contact is made before travelling to it, and a phone number is provided. That completes our walk around Foldingworth. We've now reached Spridlington Road again. This house here is Foldingworth's old forge. All in all, this is a beautiful little place which will forever be synonymous with the war, thanks to both the Royal Air Force and, of course, the Polish Air Force. Well, that's how you do it, folks. That's been the parish of Foldingworth. like I said earlier, not the biggest place in the world, but certainly one that's got a bit of history to talk about, especially the RAF base and all the Polish Air Force history there. It's like I said in the church, it's really good that that is remembered here, because the Poles did a really good job in the war, and without them, you know, I don't know whether we'd have won the war, quite frankly. But you know, that's just how it goes, I suppose. Everyone needs to be remembered in conflict, and it's good that they are. Right, time for me to move on to my next one here in West Lindsey, and hopefully this weather stays as it is, because it's nice and bright now, isn't it? I've been Andy, also known as the Village Idiot. This has been the parish of Foldingworth, and I'm out.